Thanks for joining us today on Backwoods Pursuit. Today we're going to look at the Sea to Summit Escapist Tarp and the Sea to Summit Escapist Bug Net, or the Escapist Bug Tent, can be called either, but we're going to look at how you set these up. There's a lot of setup options with the Escapist system here. You can use it as just a tarp with the bug net, a lean-to, an awning for your tent. There's a whole bunch of things you can do with this setup and this system, so it's really a versatile system, something that can be used in a lot of different situations and used for a lot of different purposes. So we're going to show you some of the setup options here with the Sea to Summit Escapist shelter system, the bug net, and the tarp itself. So come along as we take a look at all of this. We sure would appreciate it. Hit that subscribe button for us. Follow us on our Facebook and Instagram account, as well as check us out on our website, backwoodspursuit.com. Let's go get started. So the first thing we're going to look at here is the tarp. The tarp by itself. This is made of 15D Ultrasil. It comes in at 15.5 ounces, and as you can see, it's really small. Packs up really small. For a shelter, it doesn't take up hardly any room in your pack, so a super nice option there. If you want to pair it with the bug net here, or the bug tent, comes in at 13.6 ounces. So you're going to still be under 30 ounces, and this is a two-person shelter, so that the bug tent here fits two fairly easily. I've been in it with my wife, and it's plenty big for two regular size pads and then some. You can also add the ground sheet here, and the ground sheet is at 5.8 ounces. So even if you have the tarp, the bug net, and the ground sheet, you're still coming in under 35 ounces for a two-person shelter. Of course, you can take or leave any of these options as fits your needs for that time. So let's look at how to set up the tarp. Alright, so to get started, go ahead and lay the tarp out just like you would any standard shelter. Then we're going to go ahead and stake each of the corners, leaving enough slack so that we can go ahead and put a trekking pole here in the center, because this is held up by, or one of the options to set it up is using your trekking pole. So I'm going to go ahead and stake the corners, and then we'll show you how the primary option of an A-frame type of a setup with this tarp is going to work. Okay, I'm staking each of the corners here loosely. You want to make sure to leave plenty of room in this this pole, or this tensioner here, so that you can tension that as you need. So we're going to stake this down on each of the corners. Alright, after you've got the four corners staked in, grab your trekking pole. You can really set it to whatever height you want it, and you can play around with it. But I'm going to start at 50 inches or 125 millimeters, and go ahead and stick this in the grommet there. It's designed for that. And then stake down this piece, and then we'll go ahead and tension the corners after we get both sides, both of the trekking poles set in on each of the sides. Alright, we've got the front and the back trekking pole set here, and basically just going to go ahead and use these to tension this down. You can of course move this back and forth as needed, but to give you the right amount of tension front to back here, we're going to do that, and then go around to each of the corners here and tighten those down. Next up, after you've got that set the way you want, you can go ahead and grab your ground sheet if you choose to do so. If you want to go just the tarp with the ground sheet to lay on, and then it's actually a real nice thick ground sheet here compared to some of the other ones you'll find out there, and it's the same shape as the bug net. So if you decide to add the bug net, you can do that. As you can see there's the floor liner. We got that set up underneath there, and I'm going to grab the bug net now and show you how the bug net attaches into this system. It's pretty unique and kind of a cool system that allows you to have different options and flexibility of how you set this up. Throwing the bug net on is real easy. The stake tabs are color coded the same as the floor or the ground sheet there. So these being the orange ones are going to go on that side. So we'll start on this end with the black tab, same as the floor there, or the ground sheet, and we'll get this one attached on to the shelter. Alright, as you can see here, here's our black tabs. We're going to line those up and go ahead and stake this down on both sides. Okay, we got that all set, and let's run around to the front of the tent. This is the rear of the tent. Run around to the front, and we'll get the front end of this staked down now. All right, we're up here at the front of the tent. Now I would recommend using this ground sheet if you can. It's going to protect the bottom of the tent because this is just a 15D material, so it's more susceptible to punctures and that sort of thing. But go ahead, we're going to line up this the orange tabs here and go ahead and stake that in. Alright, we've got that staked in now underneath the shelter. And so the next step here is up here at the door, and then there's one here at the foot as well, are these these tensioning points that they're going to mount right up underneath here, and that's going to be what holds this up and gives it the shape. So I'm going to attach this here, and I'll show you how this attachment works. Alright, so to attach this, there's a little pull tab you can see, and you can see it better if I loosen this up here first, so you can see what's up underneath there. There's a little black pull tab right there, and it's kind of a rubber material. So if you go ahead and take this end and slide it right in there, it's flexible, so it's relatively easy to get it in there. Stick that in like that, and this is part of it's elastic, and part of it is a pair of braided kind of a paracord. So again, tighten that back up. Once you've got that attached right up there, it's same tensioner pull right there. You can go ahead and give that a bit of a tug, and that's going to go ahead and raise up this shelter on the inside to the height that you're looking for. So that's adjustable. And there's also the same attachment point on the corners right here and right there, and those go to the corners of the shelter over on the side here. I'll show you that. Okay, same deal here. Up underneath this is that same little rubber piece. You stick that the stop through that, and that gives you that elastic piece there and the cable there, and then go ahead and just tension that up, and that helps raise the shelter up to where you want it. We'll go do the other sides. The same as on the front end. Go ahead and loosen this up here, give us a little extra tension to work with. Go ahead and put that little rubber piece through the rubber tab, or the plastic piece through the rubber tab. I'll give you your tension there, or ability to tension that, and then now you can see that by pulling this and tensioning this, it raises the back end of this tent up to the height that we were looking for. So you can do that on the corners here as well. Okay, there's the corners tensioned. I'm going to go ahead and tighten these down, give each of these just a little snug, and you can see how it brings the shape of that to where you want it. Alright, so this is it mostly set up. You can see you've got the A-frame and the tarp here. You got the inner bug net with the ground sheet underneath that. Now I can make some adjustments on the corners there and get those a little more tight. It's a little bit sensitive in having it positioned correctly in conjunction with where in the corners, of course, because you're attaching to the corners on each of those tension points. So you want to play with that a little bit and kind of figure out what's going to tension the best for you. So now we're going to look at a couple of the different setup options here that you've got with this Escapist Tarp and Bug Net combo. This is another option here. This is using just the tarp, of course. We've got it set up basically like a lean-to here, where you could use it just for shade, or you could use it for actually sleeping. Of course, you could throw your bag and your pad underneath there, maybe even throw the ground sheet underneath this if you just wanted the 5-ounce ground sheet and this the tarp. You'd be good there to keep the rain and whatnot off. Obviously it's gonna be a little more susceptible to wind because of having the 2 anchor points up there, but you can anchor on the sides here and give it a little more rigidity that way as far as protection from wind. But basically I'll show you how this works in setting this up. To set up the tarp like this in a lean-to position, basically it's pretty simple. On these grommets here on the back allow you to stake it directly to the ground, and so we've got it staked there and just in that corner. You could also stake it here in the middle, and then that'd give you extra protection from wind if you did have some wind. Over here on this side, more or less all we've done is take our trekking poles and just set them up again in the grommet up on the top here on both sides, and then you just go ahead and tighten down your cord, stake that into the ground, and it's pretty simple. I've extended the trekking poles here out to their maximum 52-inch height to give as much clearance, as much room, but again on both sides you could also grab this and tighten that down, give you some more protection that way. This is more just kind of a shade type shelter, or in conditions that aren't that windy, but it's a cool option that you have with this tarp, because you got so many tie-in points. You could tie this into a tree on any of these points, of course trekking poles, anything like that, basically anything you can think of you can make just about any shape with this. So let's look at one more option here. All right, here is another setup option with this Escapist. Basically what I've done is I've taken the design we had before, left the stakes in on the bottom here directly to the ground, and then just did the trekking pole through this grommet. And I didn't have a second set of trekking poles, so I went ahead and just broke off a stick, put that over here, and about what I did was 44 inches on the trekking pole. That way it lowers it down just a little bit, gives you more space on the interior. But you can see how big this is. You could fit probably at least 3 people under this if you wanted to, line up your pads and just sleep directly on the ground. You could use it as, again, just something to get shade as well. But it gives you just a ton of space because, again, this is a 10 by 10 tarp and it's still super light. So yet another option you have with this tarp is just like this. You've got basically 2 trekking poles are staked down in each of the corners, and then staked down here with the tie down on the trekking pole up through this grommet here. Gives you a lean-to shelter for 1, maybe 2 people. Obviously, if you're not expecting some real bad weather, this would be a decent option for you, just to keep you off the ground directly and give you a little bit of shelter from if it drizzles or is a little bit wet, that sort of thing. But one last option here we'll go through with this Escapist is basically just creating yourself a bivvy of some kind. So basically I just staked in there and used my trekking pole here on this other end and just created myself a little bivvy where I can throw my pad and my bag underneath there. Just found a couple sticks and staked out here on the end. You don't even need to do that. You can just wrap the thing around your bag just to protect yourself from moisture. Obviously you're not going to have any wind protection there, so it could flap around in the wind if you had some of that. But this is another option you can do a lot with. You could even stick this inside here if you wanted, but it gets a little tough to get it to stand up if you do that. But just another option. Basically the options are endless here. This isn't even something that's in the instructions, just something just threw together just with what was sitting around here, my trekking poles. So anything you can think of to use this shelter for, it really does work. You can use it as just a big a tarp as well. Of course, if you have trees, you can just tie it off to. 4 trekking poles extended all the way up, something you could just sit under. So many options here. Anything you can think to use of it for. You can just build the A-frame, of course, and use that as something to sleep under with the ground sheet. Really anything. So, anyways, that's a quick rundown of a lot of the options you have here with this Escapist system. It's really super versatile. You can take pieces away, add them as you want to use them or as you find useful for whatever trip you're going to be on for that specific trip. So hopefully that gives you some ideas of some things to do with this Escapist system. Thanks for joining us here today. We'll see you next time.